And we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are now going to talk about the Phoenix Suns and how they were eliminated from playoff contention. Officially, they won't even make the play-in. And, yeah, their season officially came to an end. Well, they still got another, 2 games? 1 game left? But their season basically ended on Wednesday. Their final 2 games will be against the Spurs at home. That's tonight. And then they'll be playing against the Kings on Sunday. But, yeah. They officially got eliminated with a 125-112 loss. And it's just, what a disappointment this team was. Really, I mean, there's no way around it. This team had high expectations. And you go back to last year, they got knocked off by, I think, the Timberwolves. And, Durant was there, I think, the season before. And, they got knocked out again early. You thought Kevin Durant maybe could make a difference, because you got to remember, they traded Mikal Bridges to get him. And it just, this era of basketball for the Phoenix Suns has just not panned out. And then they went out and they traded a bunch of picks for Bradley Beal. And, right now they're 10 games under 500. I mean, I would not have expected that. I would have expected them to at least make the play-in. But yeah, 10 games under 500. They have lost 8 straight games. They have not won a game since Kevin Durant got hurt. And right now they got the same record as Portland. They're 2 games better than the Spurs. It's not good. And it's like, what went wrong? Their head coach is a 2-time Coach of the Year, Mike Budenholzer. And he led the Bucks to a championship not too long ago. And, he joined the team this past offseason on a 5-year, $50 million deal. I mean, who knows what's going to happen with him. But, this team was not good defensively. The top-heavy roster. And that's why, in my opinion, it's great to have stars on your team, don't get me wrong. But you need to have the right stars in the building, the right blend. They got to be able to gel together. And you also have to have the right role players around your stars as well. This shows you, this team is a prime example of why depth is so important. Why a bench is so important. Because, yeah, you could have Kevin Durant, you could have Bradley Beal, you could have Devin Booker, and they all could drop 30 points every single night. But if you don't have role players around them, you might as well just play in the Big 3 league. And yeah, I mean, look, the Suns, they had, and they took a chance, right? They took a chance on, Kevin Durant. They took a chance on this, and, they were hoping that they could get a championship with Kevin Durant. And it didn't pan out. It didn't pan out. And odds are, he's gone after this season. He's going to be gone, and they're going to have to start over. Well, I shouldn't say that. I think you could still salvage this team. I do. But I think the first thing you have to do is get rid of Kevin Durant. Now, they're kind of strapped a little bit, not because of Durant, but more so because of Bradley Beal. Because Bradley Beal has immovable contract. If I use that word right, they can't really do anything because he's got a no trade clause. They're above the second apron. They can't really make any deals. So, yeah, they really weren't able to improve the roster because of the fact that they just are so strapped financially. But this also just, I don't want to say this puts a damper on Kevin Durant's legacy, because we talked about this a little bit in our production meeting yesterday. I think people are going to remember Kevin Durant as one of the greatest basketball players that ever lived. I don't think we're going to look back on his career and we're going to focus on, well, look at what he did, when he went to the Nets and Phoenix and how it didn't pan out. We're going to look more so at, him winning his first MVP in OKC, him winning Finals MVP with the Warriors, winning back-to-back rings. We're going to focus on that. And how he was just one of the greatest scorers, one of the greatest players this game has ever seen. So I don't think his legacy, I think you're always going to look at the move to Golden State as being one of the weakest moves ever, because Kevin Durant is so gifted, and you join the team that knocked you off in the conference finals. Yeah, that was not a good look. And again, I still remember that day. It was the 4th of July. It was 2016. I'm sitting at my kitchen table, and we heard the news, and I couldn't believe it. It was shocking. But you know what? He was at the forefront when he went to the Warriors in those finals. He made a huge difference. And obviously, it helps. He also could have he took a backseat a little bit at times because, you had Klay Thompson, you had Steph Curry, of course, Draymond, and all these guys. You didn't have to, be the one and only guy. You had a bunch of other guys that could make plays and that could score points, play good defense. And then Durant decided, all right, I'm going to go build my own team, and that just has not panned out. He goes to the Nets. Nets basically blew up their young core, traded guys away. They changed coaches. They let Kenny Atkinson go, and look at what he's doing in Cleveland now. They bring in Steve Nash. That's why, when we talked about the Nuggets and how, it's a players-driven league, this is another example of that. Talking about Kevin Durant. And there's many other examples you can use. Even over in Cleveland and with the Lakers, LeBron James, LeBron James, he's his own coach, basically. But, you go back to Cleveland with everything that happened with David Blatt, it's a players-driven league. We're back at with that conversation again. So, yeah, but back to Durant, though. It just has not panned out since Golden State. It hasn't. Now, there's many teams that would love to have Durant, and, the Suns and Durant are going to do the best they can to kind of figure it out. And he'll be on a new team. But then what do the Suns do after that? I don't think they should trade Devin Booker. Bradley Beal you can't trade. So build around that. See what you could do with 2 stars. And hope that your team could be better next season. But, yeah. And then also, the owner has been making news because of what he said in a quote. He said the house is not on fire. This was on May 1st of last year. And he just talked about how, many teams. He said, so this is Matt Ishbia, the owner. I hope that's how you pronounce his name. Apologize for the mispronunciation. So this is the Suns owner. This was after they were swept last year in the first round by the Timberwolves. He said, ask the other 29 GMs. 26 of them would trade their whole team for our whole team, our draft picks, and everything as is. The house is not on fire. We're in a great position. It's not a hard fix. Well, yeah, it's it is a hard fix because you have a player you really can't move. You're going to be losing Kevin Durant, and who knows? You could be trading Devin Booker, which I don't think they should. I don't think they should. I think you need to hold on to him. You gotta have a team. You gotta have players to build around, and Devin Booker is that guy. Now he might not necessarily want. Maybe he doesn't want to stay in Phoenix. Maybe he wants out. That's a whole different story. But if that's not the case, you keep Devin Booker. You have Bradley Beal. Try to build around that if you can. Durant's the one you could let go and trade and get assets for. I don't know. That's how I look at it. But let me know what you guys think, though, about the Suns and the season that they've had. Yeah, it's a disappointment. That's all you could say. That's all you could say. So when we come back from our next break, we are going to do power rankings for Major League Baseball. Top 5 teams in Major League Baseball so far. Now, I did allude to this earlier in the show. It is going to be very tough. I had a hard time ranking 3 through 5 because you could definitely make a case for several teams. So we're going to do the best we can. We're going to do the best we can. And, and since, I started doing shows here, I never like doing rankings lists because it's just hard at times. And obviously we are very early into the season too. So the top 5 I do now is going to look a lot different, later in the season. So that is what we will do when we come back from our next break. We are going to attempt to try and rank the top 5 teams in Major League Baseball. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.